Okay, it's time to learn about background images. Background color you've seen. It's very easy to use. Background images, actually some students do use some background images, especially as we'll see these opacity-based PNGs in their resume, because it's a nice way to make a pattern kind of background, which is not distracting. Background images can be used in lots of different ways. I'm going to demo that for you now. This is an exercise where you can read through the instructions and follow along there. That's fine, but honestly, you're probably going to be just as well just to follow along with my video here and do what I show. And if I don't do exactly the same thing as are in the instructions, don't worry about it. If you submit the file, it'll be fine. And I suppose there's not a lot of independent work here, but I'm expecting that if you want to do some independent work and get some extra credit, you can do the extra credit that'll be mentioned at the end. So here we go. Project folder, background images, yes. A root folder. You make two copied HTML files. You call it background in your name, background 2 in your name. This could be background 1 and 2. Essentially, this could be 1 and 2, and your name.html. There's one file to download from Moodle. It's the bullseye.png. You'll see in the folder there are 4 files listed there. I think there's 4. The other 3 would be for use in the extra credit. And then you're going to make an image here also for this folder, though. So you're going to have 2 HTML documents, 1 downloaded image, and you're going to make a new image too. Where are you going to get these documents? They're just more copies of your Color 1. Hopefully your Color 1, remember I told you to be reusing it a number of times. And remember, you want to get the corrected version, okay, the corrected version of Color 1. And go grab it. It's still got an internal style sheet. That's fine. Copy, make 1 copy in here and call it like background 1, and another copy and call it like background 2. This should have probably been a 1 here, just to keep straight the naming versions I'm going to do, because if you do the extra credit, you're going to have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever, a bunch more of them. Okay, but you only need 2 of them here. Okay, so now I'm going to open up that file. Now I have my file is a little different because I have a bunch of text to help remind me about what I'm going to do here. But yours is just a straight color 1. You see mine is a little different because I've got a bunch of notes in my CSS. And here it is. If you run it right now, it just looks like this, as usual. Yes, good. Okay, just a completed normal color 1. So what are we going to do? Well, the first thing I want to do is stick that background image on, and it's going to be the bullseye.png. Okay, so how do we do that? Well, we're in the style area up here, and I've got some reminder here about what I'm going to do. And this is what I'm going to do. Oh yeah, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do it in the body. This is all going to be applied to the body. Background images, you see I have a new body structure here. I'm just going to stick this in here. Background images could be applied to any of a number of elements. Traditionally, usually we just apply them to the body because we want it to be a background behind everything. But if you just want it to be a background behind a little chunk of stuff, like the header area, you could apply it to that too, or that separately. So what happens if we do this? I'm going to run it. Okay, and here we have a bullseye image has been put behind everything. And that's very nice. This is an opacity-based image. So you can see what these are, how these really are put together. We're going to be making one of these a little later in Photoshop and or Pixlr. And you also notice that when you apply a background image, it automatically is tiled across the whole screen and up and down and everything, right? And if I scroll, the background image goes with it. Okay. This image you're going to see is a certain size. It's made up of a group of circles, and they are actually a semi-transparent white, which is nice because it goes with almost anything. But actually, any semi-transparent color could go pretty well. This goes nicely with the white. It's already. This is an opacity-based white here also, right? This background, this header area. Not too distracting, maybe a little bit. That's one of the issues always with using backgrounds is, are they getting in the way? They're making it hard to see. And does it match? Does it help to improve the theme? And does it make things work better? Otherwise, you probably don't want to do them. Okay, let's learn about how we can manipulate this thing now. We could also tell it to no repeat. So if this is the first, of just putting an image on is the first background image thing to know. And I'll put a return here so you can see where we're working. Here's another one we can know. We can do background image, no repeat. So what happens if we do that? Let's save and run it. I hope you're doing these along with me. So please pause the video, do the typing, and then continue along. Then it just appears when we have no repeat, it's one that's in the superhome position. Okay? And that, in fact, that tells you where the repeating is coming from. It's coming from that what we call superhome position, which is the upper left corner of the browser window. Okay, so we can also do, guess what? We can do, instead of no repeat, we can do repeat X. And you can probably guess what's just going to happen here. Please play along with me. Save the file and get ready to run it. Pause the video as we go along. And of course it repeats an X, the X-axis across. Sometimes you might just want to have one line of a repeated image, and then you can repeat in Y. And actually, I'm sorry, what am I doing here? I'm just going to change this word to Y. Save it and run it. Guess what? It goes down Y. No big surprise there. Okay. All right. Now we want to do, we're going to go back to plain old repeating. Okay. Actually, let's just go to no repeat. So we're going to go to no repeat first. And now we'll do another command. We can do position commands. We can do center. Remember when we went no repeat before? There was one in the upper left corner. But now we do background position center. So we can use a variety, and this is centered, by the way, on the whole web page, right? We can use a variety of numbers. And in fact, you can read in your text more about this, about how we use different combinations of numbers to position things. So the first number is center, so that's center from all directions then. But if we put the word center and then another, center is not a number, it's a word. But if we put the word center and then followed by a number, or if we put multiple combinations of numbers, we can handle the other directions and have more control over things. So what if we did center space 100px? Okay. Okay, now it's centered from left to right. So now the word center applies to left to right, but the 100, it means 100 pixels down from the top. All right, so let's go ahead and change that. I'm going to change that to 200, just to say I did. And I no longer wanted to say no repeat. I'm now going to say repeat, which isn't really necessary because repeating is the default position, but is an option to use the word repeat there. I still see that I'm using 1, 2, 3 types of background image commands. Okay, so what's going on here? So this is repeating, but look, the repeating is different. Now the repeating is starting with this one here, which is 200 down and centered, and then it repeats from there up and down and all around. So sometimes you have an image that you don't just want to start in the superhome position and repeat, you want to start someplace else and repeat. Let me just look through my notes to see if there's anything else I wanted to show you. Yeah, I guess that's about it, except for the idea of having it fixed. And here's a neat command. We did center, we did center. Now we're going to do fixed. Background attachment is yet a different kind of background command, which we can use. Okay. So now the background attachment is fixed, and that means the background stays still, and the everything else is what scrolls around. So those are your basic commands. Now what I'm going to ask you to do is open up Photoshop or go get Pixlr, and I'm going to do Photoshop first. Okay, so I'm going to go through the Photoshop commands first, and then I'm going to probably do Pixlr afterwards. That'll be a scaled down version in order to make our own PNG based image for we do number 2. This would be the end of the number 1, and actually, unlike your instructions say go ahead and zip it up and load it up now. I may change those because actually we've put both these documents in the same root folder. So you're gonna have this will finish number 1, and you're gonna open number 2 in just a moment as we continue. And I'm gonna pause for a moment while I get Photoshop open because that can take a little while to do. Okay, so I got Photoshop open. This is a new and updated version of Photoshop, so please excuse me if I'm a little slow in finding the commands here. We're going to do File, New, and we would like to make it, we can call this, I'm going to call this, I don't think I make suggestions for your name. I want it to be simple. I'm just going to call it Jack. And I'm going to make it 400 pixels. Make sure this says pixels and not inches, by the way, by 400 pixels. Okay. And 72 would be correct. If it says anything else, please change it. This is for web documents. 72 is right. Color mode is fine. Background is very important that it say transparent. I've noticed on some versions of Photoshop, you almost have to scroll down to find transparent. Make sure it says transparent. And then you can ignore that stuff here and just say OK. So that should give us, when Photoshop decides to work, looks like my cropping tool is selected, but I don't want it selected, so I'll just unclick it. It gives us a square space for image, a square layer, essentially, right? Okay, we're gonna, on this is where you would draw or type something. Well, I'm gonna type something, it's because I don't draw very well, that you want to be this background image. So I'm going to go click on my type tool. Okay, take a moment. Okay, and it shows that it's going to do this at this size. I want it to be 150. It's saying for me to begin with. I'm not sure how it remembered that. 150 might be a good choice. I'm going to, well, we're probably going to make it even bigger than that. And Verdana, well, we're going to change that. But right now it's being set to type in black, right? Yeah. Actually, no, it's not. I think it's being set to type in white. Let's see what happens. Click in here and type. So I'm going to type, you could type a capital letter. You could type a punctuation mark, you know. You could type anything else, some kind of symbol character or something, if you know what one is. So I'm going to type a capital J. That did not work out right. Hold on. Oops, it changed my, I must have held down the control instead. There it is. Finally, I got my type tool to work correctly. It's so slow right now. And I'm going to grab that J and move it down here. Okay. Well, a couple things. We have to make it much bigger, and I'm going to want something more, a different font for sure. Okay, so I'm going to select it. Let me change the font first. So personally, I'm going to do something kind of curly and unusual looking. You could choose whatever you want. I'm looking for something very script oriented. How about Edwardian? That's pretty weird. How about this? That's not, what was that? There it is right there. Ooh, that's kind of interesting. I like that strange curly kind of a thing here, right? Yeah, I'm gonna choose that. Okay, but now I want to make it bigger, like a lot bigger. Like, let's make it. Now, by the way, the numbers that you use will be different than me because the font you chose is going to be, and whether it's bold or not or so on too, is going to make a difference because some fonts are represented as bigger than others. So I'm going to go up to 400 first. hit enter, and it's pretty darn big, but it's still not big enough. Use my selection tool, drag it down. I want to really fill this block here, so I'm going to make it even bigger. Let's make it 600. How's that? That's going to be actually a little bit too big because I don't want it to go off the screen. It's obviously not going to be wide enough, but we can fix that in a minute. We will distress it. Let's make it 500. And that's probably a pretty good starting point. Regular selection tool, bring it up. Okay. The next thing we want to do is we want to change the color to white. So hold on just a moment. Okay, sorry, I had a little pause there. So yes, you're probably still like this. I can double click on it to bring up the type tool and have it selected, or the type tool and selected, whatever. To change the color of the letter, I'm going to make mine white, which kind of matches what she did with that bullseye. You could choose some other color if you would like. I can, once it's selected, I can click on this color up here, and I can choose. I'm going to choose white. It's just by clicking this little corner here, and that's essentially white, not perfectly white, but if I wanted to, of course, I could go in here and change the numbers to make it white by making those 255 for each of those. That should make sense for you, right? But I'll leave it there. That's okay. Close enough. All right, so now it's white. It's a little hard to see as a result, but it's not that hard to see. Okay, so now to really stretch this out and make it fill this whole area, we would like to turn it into an object that we can do a free transform with. So we're going to select this again. Okay, and we're going to do under transform, under edit menu, find transform, and then we want free transform under the edit menu. Okay, so now it has turned this object into a shape. It's no longer something we could type or handle with a type tool. All right, but I can stretch it. All right, until it fills or almost fills this. So I'm going to stretch this way. I just want to turn off my linking. I do not want to maintain the aspect ratio. There. So yeah, if you're this is a little hard to see, but if you're you are unable to skew it to go off proportion and you wanted to, you may have to unlink the width and the height here. As I want to make it, I'm okay with making it look weird. So I'm not going to worry about it getting exactly full, but just generally fill up the area. And if you chose an ampersand, you could do this, obviously an asterisk, a dollar sign, whatever. Type a couple of characters. If you want to do a different shape box, that's okay too. Okay, so we have about done it, except now in the layers panel, here we are in layers. We want to change the opacity of this layer to something like 20%. About, whatever. Now it's going to make it look like it's almost invisible. I can hit this X here. And that's okay. I can see it a little bit. I'm not sure in your video, when you're really doing yours, you'll be able to see it. And we're going to save it as a PNG. Why a PNG? Because we want multiple levels of transparency. It's both transparent background and then a semi-transparent thing. So that requires a PNG to get that. So we're going to save as. I do not want to do this. I want to save on my computer. Okay. And no, we don't want Creative Cloud files. I've got to go find my whole thing here. Background jack. That's what I want. But I don't want a PSD. I want a PNG, which is going to be one of the options you should have. There it is. And I'm going to say save. Okay. It's going to save it as a copy, but who cares? Large file size. That's okay with me. It's not going to be that big anyway. I suppose if you're really concerned about this for the web, you could really cut that down, but okay. Did it make my file? Week 9 in my back. Oops, ignore all that other stuff. And yes, it made something called jack.jpg. Okay, so now what we're going to do is I want you to go get your new copy of, well, actually, no. What I need to do is I need to show you this on Pixlr now, too. So what if you didn't have Photoshop and you weren't in a lab or someplace you could go and do it with Photoshop? Well, let's go ahead and do this with Pixlr, and then we will proceed from there. So I'll pause just a moment to get Pixlr open and move it. Okay, so here I am in Pixlr, and instead of opening up something that already had started to, you may see some history there because you've done some stuff before now. Instead of saying open image, I want to say create new. And I could choose one of these, but I'm going to use the same thing over here. I'm going to call it 400 by 400. And the background, we do not want a background. I believe that would be transparent. Hopefully we'll find out. And we're going to say this is going to be Jack. I'm going to call this a Pixlr. PLR. Okay, I'm just going to say create then. Okay, so it gave me that same thing, and we can go, I just want to save file, save. It does give me a PNG option, so that's going to be good. Good, all right. Again, this is a new version of Pixlr, so please excuse me if I'm a little slow on some of these commands or things, but here we go. I'm going to go get some text, and I'm going to type some text. Oh, I gotta click on add text. And I'm going to add just a capital. This time I'm going to do an ampersand. Okay, good. But I don't want that to be Arial. I'm going to make it something different. For the ampersand, it doesn't matter that much. And I don't, the ones that have already some erosion in them is not that important to me. Huh. Interesting font choices here. That's different. I'm going to go with whatever. You could spend a long time doing this, and I'm obviously spending too much time, but I'm going to choose this Cervantes. Who knows why? I don't know why. And I'm going to make it bigger by how much? Size is going to go way up. Woo! Actually, that's going to about fill my block already as it is. This is going to be a big black thing. The color already is white. Okay, so that's okay. I could just use sizing here, but I'm going to go see if we can do a transform. We don't want to flip or anything. Actually, I guess so with this program, I would just use these tools to just stretch it like this. I wouldn't worry about having to do a free transform or anything. Okay, so whatever character you picked, hopefully by using size and by using this box to stretch it one way or the other, you can get it to where you want. Now we're going to have to try to reduce the opacity to about 20%. And I'm going to have to take a minute to try to remember where opacity is here. So excuse me for just a moment. Good. Oops. Hold on. And I found it. Sorry about that delay. Yes. By doing a quick Google search and remembering and typing Pixlr opacity, I was able to find, and now I kind of remember this. If you go to the layer itself, and this is the type layer, and we can go to transparency, we can reduce the transparency. So we're not doing opacity exactly, we're doing transparency, but they're just mirror images of the same thing. Now, the numbers you're going to use are going to be a little different. That would be 0. It seems like this scale goes up to 100%, but yet if we did 20, we could try 20. That's not bad. You might go a little bit less than 20, I think, but that'd be fine. Okay. And then we're going to do File again, Save. And I'm going to do a PNG. I'm going to use it jack.pixlr as the name is fine. And I'm going to leave all that stuff the same. I'm going to say Download, which luckily on this browser showed me where it went because I will always forget. And I'm going to show it in my folder. And I'm going to go get a copy of it in my download folder, which is a bit of a pain, but you get used to it. I'm going to cut that. I'm going to stick it in my background folder. Paste. And now I have something called Pixlr, jackpixlr.png. Okay, good. So whichever program you used, you got to this point. And here we are again. Now I'm not going to redo the whole thing, this whole thing with you, but I ask you to please try to redo it yourself. In other words, you take your background image to HTML document, okay, and you go through the steps, and you end up with the URL again. Well, you end up with this stuff, but now the URL, and do notice that this is the first time we use a URL command here. It's sort of like an SRC, but for background images we do URL, and there's parentheses. So what's in here is the path, right? But in this case, the path is simple because the thing is right here. Now I have two of them. I have something called jack.png. I'm going to put in there. And again, it can still be repeat, and these numbers can be the same or different if you wish to. But please just use something like that so you get the background image in and repeated in a way that makes sense to you. Mostly this time you're just going to throw in the new image is all the difference here, right? But you're going to do it in the second file. I'm just using my same text over again. Okay. And here's my J that I made in Photoshop. Okay, good. That would be the J. But of course, I also made a Jack, what do I call it? PXL? Not PXL. I called it PLR. Whew. Or you did, save it, or you did this one. And it's that thing. Okay, good. All right. So that is the that of course now you could zip up that entire folder, and you would you'd be all set. That is the end of the exercise, and you got some basic information about how you use background images. Okay, two things. First of all, I want to show you something that's a tangent kind of, which you don't have to do. Actually, you can't exactly do it because you don't have the stuff. So I have to go get an image I want to practice and do something else with. Where is it? Let me go look at my HTML, but I think I have a clue for myself where to do this. Oh yeah. Okay. I got this other stuff here. Sorry about that. First, I want to do this stuff. I'm going to put in a different image. It's going to be called BBQ photo. It's going to be a no repeat, and I'm going to center it at the top. Okay, so I'm going to replace this stuff. Again, this is just a demonstration for you. You don't have to do this. So I'm going to replace this stuff here. Okay, and I got to make sure I got that image, which I don't think I have in this folder. I have a huge amount of stuff out here. There's my BBQ photo. Okay, now I got it there. I'm going to save it in this. Okay, so what's the point here? Well, this is not a good example, but there are times when you want to take a traditional image, like a JPEG, and make that the background image. Imagine if you had a page where you had a big open spot at the top where you just wanted to display a background image, or maybe it was the kind of image where parts of it really worked to have text on it, okay? And you'd have your text running over the image, but it would work together with the text, so it was easy to read. This is not such a good example because it's hard to read our text and it's just sitting there. But I did want to say that background images, one of the things that makes them different than regular images is that they are, well, they're always in the background, so stuff goes over top of them. That's true. But also, we don't give captions for them. And did you see we didn't use alt text either? The idea of a background image is it's just for presentation. It isn't necessary for informational purposes. So if you have an image that you want to use with a caption, well, that's not a background image. If you have an image you want to go into the background and have stuff lay on top of, and it just has the same effect as like color or something, then that is a background image. That's for presentation. Okay, so that was a little tangent. And now finally, I want to get to the issue of the extra credit. Okay, alrighty, here we go. Extra credit. So there's two parts of extra credit that you can do. For full extra credit, I've given you the other images, those other images in the folder. I want you to make a new folder, and you could call it something like background extra or something like that. All right, or background extra 1 or something. And I want you to go get 3 new copies of color 1. You could call them background 3, 4, 5, something like that. All right, and then in that same root folder, you would also go get the copies of those other images for the resource folder. And I want you to complete the exercises from the text 13.3. Let's make sure I got this right. Sometimes I forget and don't get the right version of the textbook. Page 330. Telling a background image. Okay, yes, 13.3, which is on 330. So that's correct then. And in the meantime, you can read the other information, 13.4 and 13.7. Okay, so you read through the chapter as you do it and do those exercises. So there's 3 more things. Okay, good. Now, what if you want to do extra credit 2? Now you make a folder again, another root folder. Okay, and that is going to have 2 more copies of color 1. You can call this one these 6 and 7. Okay, I want you to go to first the CSS gradient pattern. Okay, what does this mean? Let me go find it for you. It's on Moodle, and I got to hold on just a moment. Okay, it's on Moodle, and this is the it's in this class resource area here. In fact, there's a few things you could use in this second extra credit. I'm suggesting this one. If you just search for gradient pattern galleries, you can find your own versions. This is a gradient pattern gallery. So we have background colors, we have background images, but we could also have background patterns. And CSS has the ability to draw complicated patterns, interesting patterns. So for instance, if I click on this one, this is actually the CSS that makes that pattern. And you see it's background, right? So if I selected that whole thing and I went and pasted it in, I'm just going to repaste over this thing here, right? And I believe actually, I'll just paste it right through here. Save it and run it. Now it's a very different Black Goose bistro. So these patterns of which I'm showing you here, where are we? Got so many tabs open now, I've lost track of where we are. Here we are, and I went to there, CSS pattern gallery. So you could look through these, or you could do a search and find your own gallery. And I want you to choose one and use it as the actual CSS. And then I want you to use one of these other tools, like the online color gradient generator. All right, this is more patterns. This is a background gradient generator. So use one of these where you make your own. Now this is a little bit odd to get used to. You're making a gradient. So you could use this one, or you could search for CSS gradient generators, and you could find other ones, maybe one that you like a little better. So what you're doing is you're picking some gradient choices, and then maybe you're moving these things around, maybe changing the color in one of these areas. So I could go to this one, I could change the color to something else, say okay, and then I could go to this one, I could change the color to something else, whatever, okay, and then I could maybe make other changes to it. You can learn this, and then you're going to get this text over here, which is the CSS code. You're going to go apply that to the page. So practice takes a little practice. Work on that one, or use a different one if you like one else better. So you're going to do a CSS pattern and then a CSS gradient as options. And I want you to save those in there. And you can learn more about those as you go. Okay, so that would be the extra credit. Good luck with everything.